Hey YouTube, what is going on? Good afternoon. This is Ashley Nicole with The Practical Life, and we're back today with another live. How are you all? Uh-oh, I hope look at me dropping stuff. I hope you all have had a wonderful day so far. Hope everything is going well. As you can tell by the title, we are here with another live to talk about mystical. This channel is all about mental health. Y'all already know. Now, some aspects of this story has to do with mental health, and I'll throw little tidbits in there. Um, but I'll say I'm not sure we know much about Mystical. I think he's done some interviews, but I am really interested and I like the past few lives that I've been doing. I like kind of delving into their stories, these celebrity stories or artist stories, and trying to understand how they got to the point that they are now. And if it has anything to do, with mental health, then I like to try to connect the dots. So this channel is all about mental health. You can get your questions answered about mental health here. I'm also a career coach. So if you need any assistance with how to manage your mental health at work, if you need to strategize regarding your career, trying to, get to that next level, I am the person for you. All information on how to connect with me will be in the description box. So let's go ahead and get started. So, Mystical, y'all. Now we know Mystical as a rapper, right? Now, most people, and he has a good, of course, a huge fan base, right? But I don't know if everybody kind of knows his backstory. So we're going to kind of get into that a little bit today. But it's important to know who you're supporting. But I think it also, knowing their stories, also kind of helps us understand where they come from, right? And how we can kind of express empathy towards these situations. And I'm not saying what is going on is right or anything like that, but it just kind of helps us understand how we got here. So, y'all, let's get into it. So, I have my notes. Don't play. um, so, yes. Now, Mystical is, I believe, one of three kids. So he has a brother and then he had a sister. Right. I didn't catch if he was the oldest or what order he was in. But I believe it was three kids. He is from New Orleans, right? And even though he grew up in the rough parts, like a violent neighborhood, in some interviews, he indicated that his mom kept him from all of that. Like she made sure to, keep them from seeing things. But I mean, as kids, if you live in a neighborhood that's filled with crime and violence and then like you can't help but to see like what's going on. But he said that he was shielded from a lot of things. His mom really was kind of like a helicopter mom and kind of looking over them and making sure they didn't get into trouble and all of that stuff, right? And he grew up in a two-parent household until his father passed when he was 7. I believe he was 7 years old. And he was saying that his dad had, it sounds like he had maybe like a brain aneurysm or something, or like the way he described it was that he wasn't feeling well and he was in the hospital, and then he had like a blood clot in his brain or something like that. And so after that, the mom really kind of shielded them from, the neighborhood, or tried to, right? So it doesn't sound like, from what we know and from what I read, it doesn't sound like he was getting into trouble when he was a kid. It don't sound that way. But we'll get into more of that later. But let's fast forward to what's going on now. So the reason why I made this wanted to go live is because this man has been arrested again. This is the third time that he's been arrested for the same charge. Now, this current charge is he has actually 5 charges in this current situation. Now, the most prevalent one that that I'm interested in that has to maybe do with the mental health is the SES assault. Now, SEX assault. So this is the third time for that. Now, the rest of the charges, it was kidnapping. I think it was something else too, but one of them was kidnapping and then the SEX assault, right? So, but that latter one, this is the third time that he's been arrested for that. So this video is based on all of my opinions. Everything that I speak about is alleged, right? We're just kind of going over the information that we have read and heard so far. Any and all information is my opinion based on my education, my experience, and my knowledge in the mental health field. And just want to make sure that everyone understands that all information is also fair use. But you can find that information in the description box as well. So these current charges is what is reported. Now let's take a look at what's going on. Now he is, I believe, he's either 50 or 51 years old, and this man is Grammy nominated three times. I don't think I knew that. He's been nominated for a Grammy 3 times. I think I knew of one. But 3 times, like that's impressive, right? And so this current situation, it was reported that the deputies went to an area hospital where someone, the victim there reported that Mystikal, that he did this to them and things like that. And they had minor injuries. But of course, the investigation is ongoing. So let's take a look at his history. Now, in 2017, he was in jail for 18 months for RAPE and kidnapping. So I meant to say that for 2017, not for the current. I don't think the current charge includes kidnapping, but the one in 2017, he was in jail for 18 months for those 2 charges. And then in 2003, he did 6 years in prison for SEX battery. And at that time, it was reported that he forced his hairstylist to perform these SEX acts on him because they had cashed like these cashed unauthorized checks for thousands of dollars. So I guess he like, well, I'm not going to tell the police if you do this. What? Because it was allegedly, it was not only him that he made the hairstylist do this too, but it was I think 2 bodyguards. I read it was also 2 bodyguards. So I'm like, what in the world? So you feel like you want to like you can just do whatever? Okay. So then that was in 2003. And he is a registered SEX offender, guys. So that, we need to know that as well. Also, I think he has, based on I think the most recent interview he did, I think he has 4 children. I don't know their ages or anything like that, but he has 4 children, and I'm not sure if they have the same mom or anything. Because I think after the second time he went to prison, I feel like they do have the same mom. Because the way he was saying is like, oh, when he left for the 6 years, he had 2 kids, I believe. And then, yep, when he came home, I think he got with the same lady, the baby mom, and they had two more kids, I believe. So, but this is all, I didn't hear that information, so this is what I'm guessing based on what he said. Now, so that's kind of like the not the beginning, because I'm going to get into that, but that's just a little snippet of the charges and what he was accused of previously, right? Things like that. Now, the two things that struck me when I like read about his story and things like that. The first thing is that he is a vet. Now, I'm not sure if a lot of people knew that, but he was in the military. He was in the army, and he said he decided to go to the army after high school because he was like, oh, forget school, forget this is crazy or whatever, right? But he said he still wanted to be productive. Now, it sounds like his mom kind of pushed that, like you need to be doing something. I mean, it really sounds like his mom was involved in his life, wanting him to be a good citizen and things like that. And so he decided to go to the army. And so he said, he said when he signed up for the army, that's when they said they was going to war. He was like, oh my God. So he called his sister. It sounds like too that Mystikal and his sister, they were very close. They were very close. And so he called her. He was like, he was so scared. And he was like, I'm gonna be gone, like I might die or whatever. And she like, I know. He said, what? You ain't, that's not what you're supposed to say. You're supposed to say you're gonna be all right, bro. And so, but he said after he spoke to his sister, like he wasn't scared anymore. So it sounds like his sister, probably all the siblings, it was only three of them, that they were close, right? So he was a vet. Now, I don't know. He is a vet. I mean, I don't know how long he was in the military, but he said that he knew it wasn't going to last long because he was the actual driver of the what do you call those things? It's like it's like a truck where I forget the name of it, but he was the person like driving the soldiers around in the desert, like making sure that he was kind of like the lookout, making sure nothing was in the way for them to do what they had to do. But he did say that it wasn't really like that kind of war, like he didn't see a lot, but it still kind of like affected him a little bit. But he knew that it was not going to last long. I was trying to figure out, or like I would want to ask him like, why? How did you know that? Is it because it was just the army and it was like, okay, like my life could be taken? Was it because, oh, I didn't know it was gonna be like this much work or like whatever? I wondered that, but he said that he just basically like gave up. He stopped shining his shoes. His uniform, he kept it wrinkled. Like he just didn't care anymore. So I don't know if he did his served whatever time he's supposed to serve and then just kind of got out at that time, or if he was dishonorably discharged. I'm not really sure of the criteria for that. If anyone knows, put it in the chat. But if anybody know anything about the military, any branch, you got to shine the shoes, okay? You got to make sure that those uniforms are ironed, okay? And them three creases in the back of that shirt, you best to have them three creases. you can't be walking around and look like anything and not caring. You can't do that. And it's not to do it because it's not to do it just to be doing it. It's about self-discipline. Right. So anybody in the military, y'all know. So yeah, so he said, oh, I knew that wasn't gonna last because he said I stopped shining my shoes. I was walking around wrinkled uniform, this. Like they don't play. right? So it sounds like he didn't want to follow the rules. So then, now in 1994, now remember, the first charge was in 2003, where he did the 6 years, right? Then in 2007 was the next charge where he did 18 months. But before all of that, in 1994, his sister's life was taken. So this is where, like I start, I'm like, okay, here comes the mental health. Here comes what happened to you to get to this point, right? So his sister's life was taken, and he actually found his sister unalive. Now, according to him, the sister's boyfriend, and this was in, like in the news and stuff, because she was like brutally injured, right? Or her life was taken brutally. And the boyfriend at the time was, his name Damien Neville. He's a grandson of the Neville band or something like that. And he confessed, because she was, I mean, he said the sight that he saw when he found his sister, he said it was like, it was so scary. Like he thought he was in a horror movie. So, can you imagine finding your sister, who you were close with, in the bed? And she said she had on his one of his t-shirts, for one of his songs, because she was helping him, trying to get, his career going. And she had recently been signed to a label, I think the same label he was trying to get with at the time, or was signed to at the time, as an R&B act. So apparently she could sing and stuff like that, and she had just been signed. And so he goes in, he sees her, and he was like, that image is like, will never leave him, right? So automatically I'm thinking trauma, I'm thinking post-traumatic stress disorder, right? So then he's like, oh, but then I said, well, this behind door number one, let me go to door number two, let me go to door number three. Okay, this was not in her house, or this was like their family house, like where their mom lived, and the sister had a child, where her child lived, where he lived. Like this was their family home. And he said that their home was huge. So he was like, everybody else was upstairs and she was downstairs. So it wasn't like if something was happening to her, like no one but upstairs would be able to hear. But he said they had a huge house, so he had to go and make sure everybody else was okay, because his nephew was there, his mom was there, his mom and nephew were there when this happened to her. And so they were fine. He was like, they were fine. And he was saying like, I had to find her like that. And to top it off, this happened on his birthday. I can't imagine. That's very difficult to have to, first of all, find your sibling. Second of all, like in the midst of you finding her, like what is the thought process? Like, should I call the ambulance first? Should I call like the police first? Okay, but no, other people are in the house. Okay, let me go check on them. Okay, how can I keep them from going in there to see her? Like, it's crazy. So the boyfriend at the time, he confessed, but then he recanted his statement. I think, yeah, he was acquitted, because they said it was lack of evidence, and he recanted his confession. So, but Mystical believes that, he did it or whatever. And he, like years later, he's like, I forgave him, and I called the family and was like, I forgive you and stuff like that. But he's like, I know that he did it because he's going based off of what he originally said. Like, you said you did it, so, and he was like, I know he did it or whatever. Y'all, that is horrible. That is something that a person would never ever, like, of course, get over. But how do you go on, like, how do you sleep at night without even seeing that image? Like, it would take a lot of work in therapy to try to manage how you feel like in your life on a daily, if something like that could happen to your sibling. And knowing that you say you know who did it, but do you really know? Or is that, or because you know that person was closest to her, like, is that just because they said they did it, that kind of is like a little bit of closure for you, right? And he also said that when they had her funeral, like, if she was, they, it was so brutal that he's like, it didn't even look like his sister. And that made him feel better, because he was like, if he was to see her there just with her eyes closed and it appeared that she was just sleeping, it would have been worse for him. So it sounded like too that he was probably the strong one at the time for his family. And he was like, thank goodness my mom didn't find her, or my brother didn't find her. Thank goodness it was me. Like, I could take it. Like, that is just, and it's, when you think about it, it's kind of like he grew up in a violent neighborhood, but he was like, oh, I was shielded from most of those things. Because when you hear people like Juvenile talk about growing up in New Orleans, like, they have seen people get unalived, right? They have said this, like, I've seen people, even my cousin, I see my cousin get, hurt and all this stuff, just violent crimes. And you were shielded. Mystical said he was shielded from all of that. And then you find your sister is like, okay, I'm the one who can deal with it. You would expect someone else that has seen all of that, like, okay, I see this all the time. And of course, it'd be different if it's your sibling, but still. But if you were shielded from all of that and then you walked in and saw that, like, I can't, like, that is crazy. Like, that is horrible. So the boyfriend was acquitted. They said it was lack of evidence, and he recanted his confession. So that was in 1994, right? Now, the first time he went to prison was in 2003 for 6 years. Now, the second time he went to prison, right? The second time he went to prison, he said that his legal team, like, they did the case for free, because he's like, oh, how can I'm a nice person? How can I be a nice person and then be this other person you say that I am? It don't mix. Yes, it could mix. It's nice people all the time that do stuff that they're not supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? Right? So then, in his interview that I saw, he said that he took refuge in his music. And I think he has a few songs that he references his sister and things like that. And because it was so traumatic, also because, again, it happened on his birthday. So he said it took about 7 to 8 years before his birthday could be just his birthday. Because before that, it is, okay, my birthday and the day that I found my sister unalive. Like, that is so difficult for a person to go through. And then you have to relive that year after year after year. And he's like, his mom, sounds like he has a very close relationship with his mom. His mom was like, today is your birthday. He's like, oh, it is my birthday, and she's like, no, today is just your birthday, and he made a mention to say, like, it's not like we haven't forgotten about my sister, but all these years, it's been that was that day, right? Um, so after that happened in 1994, after that happened, he's like, after I saw that, I wasn't afraid to leave this earth. Like, what could you absolutely be scared of after that? Because the way he described it, y'all, he was like, oh, in a horror movie, when you see like whatever happened to the person's injured or whatever, like the person who did it is like right behind you, right? And he was like, that's how it felt, like a literal horror movie. So he's like, he was so scared, and he was like, but what could I be scared of after that? Nothing. He's like, nothing scared me after that. So then, what is 6 years in prison? What is 18 months? What is getting arrested for now? It's almost like when someone is grieving and they have not really coped with the grief. They have not really gone through it. They have not found ways to move forward in life, really found ways to move forward. It's almost like they live their life as if they don't care. But it's not outwardly. It's kind of, and I've seen it. It's kind of like passive. It's like you do stuff, but you really don't think about what you're doing. You are a little bit impulsive with your decisions. Um, you're living, but you're not really living. You know what I mean? Because it's almost like, hey, I lost this person, so why care about anything? And then it's almost like what Lauren said, the feeling of, okay, God dropped the ball on me, right? And then it's almost like what Mike Tyson said, you know, based on mystical situation at the time, like he was getting big, he was, going to be signed and stuff like that. Okay, God gives you all this stuff to punish you, right? And so in his situation, now his sister is gone. Okay, so then how you going to deal with it? I didn't gave you all of this, but how are you going to handle it? Because it's kind of like, okay, once you get all this stuff, now something else, it's like a balance almost. Am I making any sense, y'all? I hope so. But that's how I get to thinking about, how all these stories are intertwined, and it's like the same idea, the same thought process, right? But he said he was like, he wasn't scared to not live after that. Now after he did this 6 years, his mom, he was saying his mom told him, you are such a giver. You give too much. You are free hearted, and then that's how people take advantage of you, and that's how you find yourself in this situation, right? What? As I feel like, as especially moms with their sons, and I'll say it, moms, black moms and their sons, like, and I'm not gonna say every family does it, or every mom does it, or whatever. It's like your son can do no wrong. Or if he did do something wrong, you rationalize what he has done. Oh, he did that because of this. Or, oh, they keeping him down and stuff. No, at some point, the actions that they take, we have to make sure and make them understand that they have to take accountability for their own actions. Nobody can make you do anything. You know right from wrong. You're a grown person. Nobody can make you do anything. Nobody can make you feel a certain way. Like, all of that is up to you. You have that control. But if your mom is telling you so free hearted, you give people so much, you got to stop doing that. People take advantage of you. Then you feel a little bit better about the situation, and feeling like, I really didn't do, like, this is not me for real. Like, I didn't really do anything wrong. Or I shouldn't have, not that the act was wrong, but what the thing you're thinking that's wrong is something else. Like, oh, I knew I shouldn't be hanging around them because now they doing this to me. Instead of saying, oh, you know what, I shouldn't have committed that act. Like, there's absolutely no reason why, like, I was in the wrong, right? Um, and he also said, so remember when I said, oh, well, if that's the case, then what's 6 years in prison? What's 18 months? He said, he was like, he looked going to prison. He looked at that like, okay, I didn't lose my life. To me, that's back to the sister. Like, if I'm not in that situation, or if I don't have to face that again, I'll be fine. Put me in prison. That is not gonna hurt me. That don't scare me. What scared me was finding my sister in that bed, you know, brutally hurt. Going to prison. What's prison? I'm getting 3 hots in a cot. Um, I'm, uh working out, getting my muscles and stuff like that. I working on my music, writing songs. I could do a whole lot there. So what that's gonna do? So now, also after that 6 years, when he came out, and this is again about holding people accountable. When he came out, he said that Snoop Dogg helped him, like gave him, he let him use his management, basically helped him as far as music, trying to get back on his feet, trying to get him back in the industry, because he was gone for so long, the world had changed a lot. As far as the music industry and in general. So he kind of helped him, let him use his management, let him use whatever he need to use to kind of get back on the scene as far as music. What? And so this is why, like, you again are not being held accountable because you back to original, like you ain't even got to do nothing. People hooking you up. So I can only assume that people thinking like, oh, they gave him all that time. He didn't deserve all that time, right? So now, okay, that's all right. He'll be good when he get home. We gonna help him, all this stuff, right? So after that first time, he said Snoop let him use his management, all of that. And then the second one at the 18 months, his legal team worked on the case for free. Where they do this at? That was the second time. Where they do this at? Okay. So think about all that, right? And in the most recent interview, it sounded like he was looking at this because this is before, of course, the third one that we on now. He was looking at it like it sounds like he's thinking like, oh, this just like spiritual warfare against me, they it's trying to get me down, but I can't fight that way. I'm gonna let God fight my. It's like, don't bring that into it. You did something that you weren't supposed to be doing, not once, not twice, but now we on the third time, Mystikal. Like you got to take responsibility, right? So that was very interesting to find out that they worked on the case for free. He's like, oh, because they know I didn't do it, huh? I mean, who? First of all, it's a whole bunch of people. It's a whole bunch of people that didn't do it. It's a whole bunch of lawyers that know somebody didn't do it, but they don't say, "Oh, we're gonna do it for free," or not know, but feel like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, okay, based on the evidence or whatever, it don't. But they don't do it for free. Mm-mm. So then, let's get to the mental health part, right? So, and let me know what you guys think. What do you think about this third time? Like, this is ridiculous at this point, right? Like, what are we doing? And then now he has 4 kids. I would imagine his kids will be close to, they might be grown now, at least. Yeah, mostly all of them probably. Like, how would this affect them? And I feel like, I think he's married. I think he's married to to the mom, to their mom. Let me see. I feel like I heard him say that he is married on this most recent interview I saw. Um, I think he is. Oh no, he's not. Okay, I don't think he is. I don't think he is married. Um, mhm. Yeah, I don't think he's married, but this is ridiculous. It's like he is a serial offender. And when you look at mental health, what, we have to really kind of take a look at what's really going on here, because if he is, this is all alleged for this third one, right? But if he is, found guilty of this crime, this time, and he goes to prison, how long is he going to go in? Is he going to get back out to potentially do the same thing again? Like, what do y'all think? How much time do y'all think he should get if he is found guilty? Like, or do you think he should go to some type of program? Because there are programs when it comes to sex offenders. There are treatment programs that they can go to. Like, do you all feel like he needs that, or he needs to do more prison time? I don't know. Now, when it comes to mental health, most sex offenders are not mentally ill. So keep that in mind. Now, they can not saying that they can't have a diagnosis, maybe, but most of them do not have mental health diagnoses. Now, some of them may have that access to, which I talked about before when it comes to when we talked about Tim Norman from Sweetie Pies and his situation. He has access to, which we talked about him maybe potentially having some type of personality disorder. So this is something that I wanted to kind of delve into when it comes to Mystikal, right? Because he might not necessarily be qualified to have a diagnosis. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, based on what happened to his sister, definitely is trauma. I mean, it's probably trauma before that, trauma from losing his dad, because the way he described it, it seems like it's, like, oh, he just went to the hospital, but then he died. You know what I'm saying? So it could be trauma from that. And he was 7. He was 7. And then this happened to your sister. So that definitely would probably put him in a category of having post-traumatic stress. And then he went to the army. Now, he may not have been, because he was like, oh, it wasn't that type of war. I mean, but to him, it may not have been, right? Based on like the neighborhood he came from and all this stuff. But to somebody else, they'll be like, you did what? Like, you saw all of that? Oh no, that's not normal. You shouldn't be, no eyes, those images shouldn't be in somebody's mind to remember. You know what I mean? So he does have a past that has to do with trauma. Right now, has he had therapy? Has he tried to deal with it? I mean, he didn't indicate that he was in therapy or went to therapy after all of this, probably in his own way, which is through the music. And sound like maybe that helped him, because also his sister was into music too. So that probably helped him a little bit. And even in a recent interview, which was probably last year, I think it was, he's like, oh, my mom and me, we were talking about my sister yesterday, right? And he's like, oh, my mom was getting ready to break down. I'm like, oh no, but you still have memories. All you gotta do is close your eyes and think about the good times and stuff like that. And he's like, thank God for memories. You can't erase that, Um, so yeah, so he definitely has a past that's filled with trauma. And in the interview, it seems like to me, I mean, it's probably too because it's been a lot of years, and he's just, I don't know if cope is the right word. he's just kind of like, it is what it is. Like, it happened to her, but I gotta move on with life. You know what I mean? Not that he has to cope with it or learn how to. It seems like, oh, he just kind of puts it in the back of his mind, right? Um, because when the interviewer was asking him questions about it, he's like, "Yep, yep, I found her. Yep, I found her like that." It's like the affect was off. I mean, he did express like sadness, like, man, like, yeah, that was crazy, But he like, oh, yep, it was me. I found her like that. Yep, it just seemed a little bit off to me. But that's just me. Tell me what you all think. So yes, so now even though most sex offenders are not, diagnosed with a mental illness or anything like that, okay, but they do have there are like some risk factors. Some of those could be, substance use, right? Some of those could be having a learning disability, and like I mentioned before about the personality disorder. Now I did read one study. There's like a few studies that kind of associate sex offenders with having like this organic brain damage, and things like that. You guys can look it up, do your Googles if you want to find it, but there are some studies that also show that. And I want to get into my DSM because y'all know, like, this is my reference book, and I'm giving you guys a firsthand look, sneak peek at how we do this as therapists. And so now he is a serial offender. Now, I'm not saying that he would be diagnosed with this. This is just based on, we're just talking here. This is not what he has been diagnosed with. This is not what he should be diagnosed with, right? We are just taking a gander. And so when you talk about personality disorders, that's what you have. When you hear people say borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, you have your antisocial, right? And so based on these behaviors, being a serial offender and going to prison, based on this past trauma, I'm leaning towards looking at this antisocial. Now, I'm sure you all have heard antisocial before. You've heard the term. And most of the time we think of antisocial, people are talking about someone who, doesn't associate with people much and keeps to themselves and things like that. Now, when you talk about mental health and having antisocial personality disorder, you're talking about someone with a pattern of disregard for the rights of others. And now that I think about it, I'm thinking about Tim Norman too, when it relates to this. But we looked at narcissism when it came to him because everybody say he's a narcissist. So we kind of looked at that personality disorder. But we're talking about antisocial right now. So this is having a pattern of disregard for and violation of the rights of others. But it says occurring since the age of 15. And I could not, based on his interview, and I tried to like look up, see if I could find anything, like I couldn't find anything to say that he was getting into trouble as a teen, or the way he described it is that his mom kept him from all of that stuff. So I couldn't find anything related to him getting arrested or getting in trouble at school. He just said that after high school, he's like, oh, forget school, forget this. But then it's interesting because at the end of high school, he made the decision to go to the army, like, oh, I want to be productive. So to have that thought process at that young of an age, like to make a decision to go to the service, like I don't know if he was getting in trouble like that. Unless his mom was like, listen, it's four people hiring. The Army, the Marines, the Air Force, and the Navy. They are hiring. So you got to make a choice, right? But he's like, oh, I still wanted to be productive. So I don't know if he was getting in trouble. But also, okay, so but when you look at antisocial, you are violating the rights of others. But again, this is occurring since the age of 15. So if he was getting into trouble at that time, he would have to have three or more of the following: failure to conform to social norms with respect to lawful behaviors that's indicated by repeatedly performing acts that are grounds for arrest, deceitfulness, and that's indicated by repeated lying, conning others, being impulsive or failure to plan ahead, irritability and aggressiveness. Now he also said that later on, like when he was in the music business and stuff like that, like he would not put himself in certain situations because he was like, I already know how I am. Like I'll put something to rest real quick. So I don't know if he's a little bit aggressive or gets has a short temper, right? And he's able to kind of, or he tries to control it, or he controls it in front of some people but not others. It's almost like in the interview, you would think that this man is the nicest man ever. Like he did all of this. But I mean, those sometimes those be the ones, y'all. That's why you got to. It's like being scammed and duped. Like you got to make sure that your discernment is on point. You got to make sure that you listening to your and trusting your intuition. When something don't sound right, it's not right. Now maybe it could be, okay, but you will find that later. Find that out later on. Like you use your deductive reasoning because you in a situation where I remember when I used to do in-home counseling, y'all. And I ain't gonna lie, it used to be some houses or some areas that I go into, and I'd be like, why they gotta live over here? And mind you, I started doing in-home counseling when I when I lived in St. Louis. And baby, I told y'all I know the areas. Okay. I grew up there. I was born and raised there. So I know where you should go, where you shouldn't go. Now, as a kid, you don't really realize where you should, like, oh, you shouldn't be here, be over here, or whatever. But as an adult, you like, stay on this side. Y'all, it be some houses I'm like, why do they have to live over here? Like you literally, anybody who does in-home anything, y'all know, like you get that feeling like, dang, why? Why I got to go in here? It's either because it's not the right area, or it could be an okay area, but baby, the inside of the house don't be right. That people don't clean up. House smell like pee. They got all kind of animals and don't clean them after they animals. It be dog hair. Y'all, people. Some people just disgusting for real. But yeah. So it's like certain places. You're not like if you get that feeling that, like for me, it would happen where if I would go to a house and I want to tell y'all a story. Y'all, okay. I probably was, this was probably my, in the first 6 months that I started, I was in the field. Like I had graduated and I was in the field. And this was probably within the first 6 months. So, they do your little training or whatever, where somebody else, like your supervisor or whatever, will go out to the homes with you. And the people that I was helping, they were some of them were severely mentally ill, like people, with schizophrenia, weren't able to manage symptoms, stuff like that. And then there were some people who were very high functioning, where I might only have to see them like once every 3 months just to kind of check on them. Because when you first start, I don't know how it is now, but when you first start being in the field, the type of job that I had was like case management. So you would just like take people to their psychiatrist appointments, but it was like good experience because you get to hear, you're actually in the appointment with them. So you get to hear what medication they're taking, what it's for, how they, them talking to the doctor, so you get a lot of experience doing that. But baby, I had to go in those people's homes. And this one, oh my God, y'all. So I think this person may have been high functioning, and I cannot remember the diagnosis, y'all, but um I was never really comfortable with going into their home because it felt eerie all the time. And they would always be in the back of their house. Like every time I came in, like I would always sit near the door. Like if you do in home, you need to make sure you sit near the door. Just in case you got to make a run for it. Because I'm telling you. So and the person was very nice for the most part. They were just, high functioning or whatever. And but you could tell that they had a short temper. And this, I can't remember the diagnosis that the person had, but it had something to do, it was one of the symptoms of the diagnosis, right? And so they were had a very, you could tell anything would set them off. It could be like the smallest thing. And now that I think about it, I feel like it was probably because of the medication that they were on. But anything would set them off. And honey, they will always be in the back of the house. Now, one day, and y'all, I told y'all, sometimes I probably be overdoing it, but and at that point too, being new in the field, I was probably overly cautious, which I feel like is normal because you don't know what to expect. You're just working, and some people that go out the window when they mad and they dealing with other stuff, right? And the person lived by themselves. And so one day something happened with one of their bills. And either they had forgot to pay the bill or the company charged them too much. Something happened with that bill. And so when I went, like, those are some of the things that I would like help them figure out. Like, okay, how do we problem solve instead of getting upset, stuff like that. And so when I got there, they were on the phone with the company. And I could hear it already, like, no, you guys did this and this and this. And that voice became escalated. So at first I didn't, I was cool. I sat down, and stuff like that. Just always make sure you're alert and observing your surroundings, what's going on, is anyone else in the house, blah, blah, blah. So they were fussing at the people on the phone. And so they got off the phone and they started fussing at me. Like, why did they do this? Why did they charge my card? And blah, blah, blah. And then they headed to the kitchen. So I'm looking, I'm like, what they about to do? So y'all, if y'all do in-home, y'all know at this point, I'm looking at my bag and I'm whatever notebook I got out, I'm putting that sucker right back in the bag because I'm like, it might be time to go. Y'all. This person went in the kitchen. Do you know, all I heard was drawers opening and shutting, like boom, 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 boom. Then I heard like take something out the drawer. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a fork. I don't know if it was a knife. I don't know if it was a butcher knife. Baby, because when I said it was mad about that bill, they was mad about that bill. And the temper is so short. And it goes back to emotional intelligence, letting the emotions think for you instead of taking a step back and really thinking about what you're doing. They weren't thinking. You could hear it in the tone, you could hear it in the footsteps, you can hear it in slamming those drawers. Girl, I got my purse on my bag, my little work bag, and I had it right out that door. I didn't even say bye or anything because I got those goosebumps. That's how I used to always know that it was time to go. When I get them little goosebumps, that means I don't feel safe. So guess what? I'm getting ready to exit out that door and I'm getting ready to go. I'll call you to make sure everything's fine, but I'm not getting ready to stay up here and potentially be hurt because you mad about the phone bill. No. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. So anytime, and that was just one example of like when I first started being in the field. It's other examples. I'll tell y'all those later because I got to get up out of here. But you know, being aggressive and having a short temper and things like that, right? So also being having reckless disregard for safety of self or others, right? That goes back to what was the second charge? The second charge was kidnapping. What? What is you doing? Come on now. Then consistent irresponsibility, as indicated by repeated failure to sustain consistent work behavior or honor financial obligations. So with the military, the military, of course, it's a job. He like, oh, I knew that wasn't gonna last. I was like, I ain't about to shine these shoes. I I ain't about to earn this uniform. Mm-mm. Then he said he was working some job and I can't remember what it was. And then the dude from the record label came. He was like, he gave him like $500. He was like, oh, forget this job. What? Oh, $500? Come on now. Then lack of remorse. So this is what I mean, when I look at that interview and I see his affect, like how he views the situation, right? Even if he would have said, you know what, I was in the wrong situation. I don't advise anyone to do this, that, and the third, whatever it is. Like he like, oh no, this spiritual warfare against me. Like he is not taking accountability or being responsible or having empathy for the person on the other side. Like you say you didn't do it, but something happened in the situation, or we wouldn't be here the third time or the second time. Um, in order to be diagnosed with this access to antisocial, right, they have to be at least 18. But again, there has to be evidence of conduct disorder before age 15. So I don't know if he was getting in trouble in elementary school, middle school, I don't know. But what I do know is that he has a disregard for and violation of the rights of others, right? He is seems like he's impulsive. The emotional intelligence and and again, these are my opinions. The emotional intelligence is not there because what he's doing, he's not thinking before he acts. And at 51 years old, it's simple. Like you know where you should be, where you shouldn't be. You know the type of people that's even if there are people that you feel like could get you in that type of trouble because they don't care for real. You know not to put yourself around them. So what's really going on, right? Um, so those are my thoughts about what's going on, guys. Let me know what you all think. I have to get up out of here. Um, Definitely he probably wouldn't have that access to antisocial because we don't know if he was what type of trouble or he was getting into in elementary school or if he was or not, right? We're just simply looking at, okay, this is the third time you're a serial offender, right? You have a disregard for others' rights. You're impulsive, evidently, obviously. Um, He doesn't respect authority because it's kind of like this, you know this is your third time. So whatever situation you were in with the person, like you know what it could possibly turn into, but you're not thinking, you're something with the thought process. You're not thinking ahead. You got to put your thinking cap on, Mystical. You got to put your thinking cap on. So, yes, so we'll see again the investigation, the current charge is ongoing. So I'm going to keep up with it and bring you guys more information about it. So thank you all for watching. Please subscribe, consider subscribing. Join me in my journey to 1,000 subscribers. I'm loving this YouTube thing. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.